Welcome to episode 3 of the DualShock Graveyard podcast. Welcome back to DualShock Graveyard. I am Julian, your host. And for new listeners out there, for the uninitiated, DualShock Graveyard is a gaming podcast with a horror spin to it. And speaking of horror, happy October to all of you. October is a big month for the podcast. It's the month where the horror aspect of the show comes full circle. It's also the first podcast of the month, which I'm happy because I get to introduce a new, not a new segment, but it's kind of a new monthly thing. The first episode of each month is going to be kind of where I present the games that are coming out for this month. And I'm really happy that I'm doing it in October because it is my favorite month of the year just for the Halloween stuff in general. But October has, in the gaming industry, it's become kind of the new release month for all the biggest titles. It used to be November. November used to be the Call of Duty month, the Assassin's Creed month, sometimes the Battlefield month. They don't release yearly, but and other big titles as well. But slowly, it's they've been going back and releasing these giant games in October. I think the last couple Call of Duties actually came out in October, but within the last couple years. But I mean, now it's just every single game is in October, so I'm really happy that they're doing that because it just means that the end of the year, which the big titles that would come out, which usually would be in November, and the end of the year, November, December, would be those last 2 months with the biggest games. Now it's just 1 month earlier, which is really nice. But before I do get into that list, it's in my notes right in front of me here. We do have some breaking news. And I want to preface this breaking news real quick. In my mind, I have a list of games that, as I'm sure a lot of you do as well, of, games that we wish existed. Very recently, one of those games of mine came into fruition in the form of Insomniac's latest Spider-Man. For many years, I've wanted a legit, no movie tie, quality Spider-Man game, and we all finally got it recently. Spider-Man for the PS4 is game of the year contender, one of the best games I've played this year. I'm still in the process of trying to platinum it. I think I'm down to I'm just doing some it's just petty street crimes that I have to. There's like each district of the map has a set of street crimes that you have to solve. You just gotta swing around and wait for them to pop up, which not to veer too far from the subject, but Spider-Man is here. Another game on that list. I would really love a remake, a from the ground up remake of Super Mario 64, maybe for the Switch, the classic N64 game. That would be really nice to see. It's one of my all-time favorites, and I know remakes are kind of being watered down at this point. There's just so many, but I mean, what's one more? I'm sure if I thought long and hard, I could probably think of a couple more. But another game that is on that list might be happening if these leaks are to be believed, which, take it with a grain of salt, this might be real. So last night, a minute and 10 second, I would say around there, clip of I don't know if it's open world, but it is a legit RPG set in the world of Harry Potter. That is one that I've been wanting for so long, and you do need to take this with a grain of salt because it is one of those the trailer itself is one of those cell phone recording a screen type things, which we have seen examples of those not being true. There's the famous Jack Ford screenshot that turned out to be fake. Bloodborne karting, which is a meme, but it's still another example. But this isn't a still shot. This is a trailer. It's a video. A very high quality video where we see wand to wand combat and a short clip of a character creator where you create your own wizard, which is another thing that I've wanted. So the video itself is on my Twitter. If you do want to see it, I mean, I'm sure by the time you hear this, it'll probably be, big news. But if you do want to see it immediately, you just want to see it right now, because this is, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's wanted this type of game. So the clip is out there. It's on my Twitter, at ambient_Jules. And you know what? While you're there, just give me a follow, Follow me on Twitter. All of you. This is, I'm not sure if the next stage of the podcast is just make a bunch of socials for the show. But for now, the main online hub of the DualShock Graveyard podcast is my private Twitter, my personal Twitter, which is ambient_Jules. So there you go. That's very exciting. Some very exciting news to kick off this week's episode. I want to go ahead and get into this list here. So again, this is a very stacked October. This is the main release month of the year. We are currently at October 3rd, 2018. This month, actually, of releases started yesterday, as a matter of fact. October 2nd, we saw the release of Mega Man 11 and Forza Horizon 4. Mega Man 11, that's exciting. I was never too big on Mega Man. Not at all. A lot of people are. It was major news when Mega Man was an announced fighter in Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U. Very popular character. Although I'm not too familiar with the series, it is kind of cool seeing a series that's been ongoing for as long as it has, and just seeing it continue on. I'm not sure. I haven't been seeing it. I don't know the exact reception of it, but whatever. It's cool seeing classic series going strong. So good for Mega Man. Mega Man 11 out now. And along with Mega Man 11, we've got Forza Horizon 4, which is Microsoft's racing franchise, open world racing franchise, which, I mean, here's the thing, right? Whenever I talk about a Microsoft game or an Xbox game, I always tend to repeat the same thing. I always tend to kind of give Microsoft a little bit of slack for the way it's releasing its games. Forza is a Microsoft product. It's not coming to PlayStation. It's not coming to Switch. But as of late, Microsoft have been going for this Play Anywhere, where all their exclusives are being released for the Xbox and for PC, which, I mean, that's cool, it's got a bigger market, but it's not doing any favors for the Xbox brand. It's not. I don't own an Xbox. I can play Forza Horizon 4 on my PC if I wanted to play it. If I wanted to play bad enough, I could just which I do have a Microsoft account, and just buy it on the Windows Store. And that's, again, not doing any favors for the Xbox. That's significant. And not just this game, but the next Gears, I don't know if it's been announced yet, but I would assume, going with what Microsoft has been doing, if I can play the next Gears, or even more important, if I can play Halo Infinite, the recently announced Halo Infinite, the latest Halo game, if I can play it on my PC, buy it, download it, and just play it without even having to utter the word Xbox. I mean, I've seen many YouTubers, trying to underplay the significance of that, but you can't. That's significant. That'd be if God of War, which is one of PlayStation's hallmark franchises, if people can play that on the PC, that's major news. That is big. So I don't know. I don't know if Microsoft have given up on the exclusive race. They are doing some good things as far as consumer-friendly practices. They do have backwards compatibility. You can play Xbox 360 games on the Xbox One. You currently cannot play PS3 games on the PS4. So I'm very curious to see where Microsoft is going in the future. But there you go. Forza Horizon 4 out now. Moving on October 5th, we've got a couple games, which is this Friday, I believe. Today's the 3rd. The 5th is on a Friday, which is this Friday. the 5th, we've got the release of Super Mario Party for the Switch and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Super Mario Party, what can I say about Mario Party? Except that I haven't played a Mario Party game since the Nintendo 64. I think that was Mario Party 2 or 3. I forget. I haven't played... I mean, I've played a couple of the later ones, like at a Walmart display a few times. A series of mini games. This latest one for the Switch, I mean, it's looking good. I mean, it seems... I mean, it's not like a... I mean, there are significant leaps with each game, but the core principle of the Mario Party games is just, a fun series of Mario mini games to be enjoyed with the whole family, and that seems to be what is going on here. Obviously, releasing on the Switch, they're going to use the Joy-Cons. I believe you can combine 2 Switch screens and make like a big 4-player, Mario Party, basically. So, there you go. There is a game that I'm considering getting a Switch for that is not releasing this month. But if I ever do one, I'll probably check out Mario Party. Super Mario Party for the Switch, out October 5th. As well as Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is also releasing on the 5th. The last Assassin's Creed game I've played, like really played, that I don't want to say loved, because I didn't really love it, but it was Assassin's Creed 3 for the PlayStation 3. It was sort of a letdown, even though I was a fan of the setting, which was set in the American Revolution. I did buy Assassin's Creed 4. I played it for a little bit, but I just kind of fell off and just stopped after a while. If I recall, I think I did remember kind of enjoying it, but one thing I've always hated about those, the Assassin's Creed games of that era, 3, 4... I was never a fan of the naval combat. It was always a tedious gameplay segment. I was never a fan of, the naval combat. The ships were always kind of sluggish, it's boat combat. And it is as tedious as it sounds. But this latest one, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I am a major fan, despite not playing the recent outings, which was Assassin's Creed Unity, set in during the French Revolution. Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which is set during the Industrial Revolution in Great Britain, and Assassin's Creed Origins, which is set in ancient Egypt. Ooh, I had to dig through my memory for those. I am a big fan of ancient Greece. I loved learning about it in school. I love the mythology of ancient Greece. I love Greek mythology. And Assassin's Creed Odyssey is set in ancient Greece. So, I don't know. I certainly have no desire to, play 3 games just to play a game that the only game of that series I'm interested in. So I might just hop into Assassin's Creed Odyssey with that. As far as I hear, I think they did kind of let go the present day storyline of those games. What in the world is that? It sounds like some heavy constructioning happened out there, but whatever. Anyway, as I was saying, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I might just jump into that one. It doesn't seem like you have... I mean, it seems at this point, each game is its own standalone experience. I know for the original Assassin's Creed games, 1, 2, Brotherhood... what was that one after that one? Revelations. It was kind of like a story. There was a present day storyline as well as the historical one that brought all those games together. But I think at this point of the series, it's just its own game. I think there is a modern day storyline in each one as well, but they're not necessarily interconnectable. Here I am inventing words, but they're standalone. So I'm quite sure I can enjoy Assassin's Creed Odyssey without playing the recent ones, which I sure hope so, because I do love ancient Greece. I think you do play as a Spartan, which is pretty cool. So there you go, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, coming out this Friday, October 5th. Next, releasing October 9th, which is next Tuesday. I think the 9th is on a Tuesday. WWE 2K19. This game is not one that I'm planning on getting. It's just one that, when I do make these lists, I'm not going to list every single game that's coming out that month. We do have a lot of games this month because we just have a lot of big releases happening. But let's say on a given month, it's just going to be a small list of the games that either I'm very much interested in playing or just one that I find interesting. WWE 2K9 is one of those that I'm probably not going to buy, but it is one that's worth noting. The last wrestling game that I played was what was it? It was SmackDown 2 Know Your Role for the original PlayStation. And this was back when wrestling games, one would come out every couple of years, and every time it did, there would be this massive jump in quality, in graphics, wrestler rosters. Now, here's the thing. I understand sports games. Actually, I don't understand, because there's not much innovation in sports games anymore, when the main draw of each yearly sports game is it's basically just a roster update. As of late, there hasn't been much, gameplay innovation as far as each yearly sports title, say a FIFA or a Madden or a NBA 2K game. So, I don't know. I'm not too big on sports games as I used to be. I remember during the PS2 days, me and my brother would buy every FIFA game, and we'd roast the soundtracks. Every FIFA game had like a really crazy soundtrack, and there's quite a few tracks from those games that we loved. But I mean, now, just talking about WWE games in particular, that's another yearly game, which makes very little sense to release yearly, because there's just not much of a difference each year. Which sucks, because there was a time where wrestling games would come out, like I said, once every couple years. You had my favorite wrestling game, which was Know Your Role, and then a couple years later, I think it was on the PS2, I think it was WWE Shut Your Mouth, and then No Mercy, and then a couple others. But each time one would come out, there would be a massive leap in quality, which would benefit wrestling very well. I mean, if that kept on going, especially with how beautiful games are and how complex the mechanics are now, if the WWE just took once every couple years to release a new game, they would definitely benefit it. But I don't know, money talks. That's probably not what they're aiming for. It would be smart. I mean, especially okay, fine. Sports games could let them keep their yearly releases, but for wrestling, I mean, is that really necessary? I don't know. That would be nice. Like, say WWE 2K9 is the last one that comes out, and then 2 years later, WWE subtitle would come out, and it would just be this. It would come out for PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox. It would just be this next giant wrestling game with a massive roster, bunch of cool features. I think wrestling of all those should go back to how it used to release. I don't really see the benefit of wrestling games being a yearly release, but that's where we are as far as wrestling games. So, if you're interested at all, WWE 2K19 releasing next Tuesday, October 9th, 2018. Moving on to October 12th, we've got Call of Duty Black Ops 4. By the way, I am taking like 5-second breaks. I'm hoping the cuts aren't too obvious, but I am drinking a nice cold beer as I'm doing this podcast. And when listening to podcasts, one of the things I cannot stand are people eating on the mic, and certainly drinking on the mic. So, out of respect to all of you listeners out there, I am not doing that on the mic. Hopefully the cuts aren't too obvious, but just for the sake of, what's the word? Transparency. I figured I should share that. But Call of Duty Black Ops 4 coming out October 12th for the PS4, Xbox, and PC. No Switch. Another Call of Duty game, but this one is different. There is no story mode, no campaign in this Call of Duty. They've strictly sticked with the multiplayer, the zombies mode, and they're really, really heavily weighing on the new Battle Royale mode, which is crazy because, they are just jumping on the Battle Royale craze, which is weird for Call of Duty because Call of Duty at a time did used to be the innovators. They used to be the top, which in many ways they are still. They're still one of the best-selling series, year after year. But Call of Duty used to be that, just the innovators, People would follow what Call of Duty was doing. Now Call of Duty is kind of jumping on what's popular now, which, good for them, I guess. This is kind of a new chapter for the Battle Royale craze, which is currently being dominated by the likes of, Fortnite, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, PUBG. One that I'm playing right now is a H1Z1 Royale, which is actually pretty cool. If you have a PS4, it is free to play. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds doesn't run particularly well on the Xbox. It is going to come out pretty soon on the PS4, and that was for a little bit the best Battle Royale game. But on consoles, it doesn't run as smooth. H1Z1 Battle Royale is basically PUBG if it ran well. Like, it's got the same, realistic military type Battle Royale, but it runs at a full 60 frames per second, and it's fun. It's got vehicles. So if you're looking for a stable console version of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, I would recommend H1Z1 Battle Royale, which is free to play on the PS4. But we are talking about Call of Duty Black Ops 4, and that game is introducing its own Battle Royale mode, Blackout, which is a new chapter in this Battle Royale craze, because now we're seeing the major shooter franchises, not just Call of Duty, but also Battlefield, this coming Battlefield 5, which is releasing, when is that coming out? November, I believe? I know it got delayed, but Battlefield 5 was originally going to come out in October and would be one of the games that we would be talking about today, but it did get delayed. And I didn't update my list to the new release dates, but I'm assuming that it is in November, but Battlefield 5 is also getting its own Battle Royale mode. So we're seeing these big, giant franchises jump on the craze, and where Battle Royale goes from there, now that we've got the likes of Call of Duty and Battlefield jumping in, who knows? This could be a bad thing for some, not particularly Fortnite, because Fortnite is so massive. It's everywhere. Kids, teachers are having trouble with getting Fortnite out of the classrooms. It's on their mobile devices now. Kids just can't get enough Fortnite. PUBG is kind of on a downward decline right now. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I think with the inclusion of these big, giant franchises introducing Battle Royale, this could be not a good thing for them. But Battle Royale in general is not really a franchise that I play a lot. I did download Fortnite for a bit, and it was kind of fun, but I sucked. But the main one that I play is, again, H1Z1 Battle Royale, which is pretty fun. So there you go. Call of Duty Black Ops 4. No campaign. So if you were one of those players that played Call of Duty for the story, for the campaign mode, there is no campaign mode. They cut that out completely. It's unfortunately listen, if PlayStation proved one thing, is that single player games are not dead. A lot of people like EA, a lot of brands like EA, Activision, they did try to put out this narrative that single player games were on a downward decline, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Given games like God of War, Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn, Detroit Become Human, what are some other games I played this year? I know I'm just naming off PlayStation games, but a Dragon Ball Z Fighters, a fighting game. You can play that by yourself. Single player games are not going anywhere, and rightfully so, because I do end up enjoying a single player game more than I do a multiplayer game. But again, some brands don't see it that way. You see Call of Duty Black Ops 4 not including a campaign. And unfortunately, it probably is because there's not much money to be made by investing in a single-player game when you could just include a Battle Royale mode instead and profit off, the microtransactions. And I don't know if it's got loot. I mean, I can only assume that Call of Duty 4 will include loot boxes. The previous ones I've played have. But there you go. For those interested, Call of Duty Black Ops 4 releasing October 12th, 2018. Next up, we've got October 16th. We've got Ubisoft's Starlink Battle for Atlas. Starlink Battle for Atlas. This is another one that I'm not planning on getting, but I did want to share this game because it is interesting. It's one of those... It's by Ubisoft. Ubisoft is the developer and publisher. It's one of those toy... Similar in the vein of like Disney Infinity. It's one of those games that has like a physical toy station combat where you buy like parts, you buy toys to put into this main toy that connects to the game. That the reason I'm bringing this up is we've seen it before with Disney Infinity, we've seen it with Skylanders, but this is the first time where a major, as far as I know, I could be wrong, but this is the first time where one of the major gaming publishers is dipping their toes in this kind of I don't know what you would even call this, like a toy accessory game, I guess. But what I do know is that there is a market for, I know there's a market, many young kids enjoy these games. I know Disney, even, it is kind of an oxymoron even saying this because I think the studio behind it disbanded. I think they but they just stopped with the production of Disney Infinity accessories. But it was popular at the time. Skylanders, I know, is very popular. So I think, eventually there would be a major publisher like Ubisoft or someone else would try to, take advantage of it. So they've got their own. This is Starlink Battle for Atlas for the PS4, Xbox, and the Switch. And it's interesting because the Switch version has a Star Fox expansion, which has like levels of Star Fox, which is interesting because those levels actually look a lot better than the last few Star Fox games that we've got. So there you go. If you're a Switch owner, you want your Star Fox fix away from Star Fox, get yourself Starlink Battle for Atlas. Coming out October 16th. Next up, October 19th, we've got Dark Souls Remastered for the Switch. The game's already out for PS4 and Xbox, but this is the Switch port, which comes with its own custom amiibos. Excuse me. Dark Souls looks like I haven't played Dark Souls in years. I got far now, I remember, but I never actually beat it. I never played Dark Souls 2 or Dark Souls 3, but I did very much play Bloodborne, which is in the same by the same developer and is that same style of game. So if you're a Switch owner, you're looking forward to Dark Souls Remastered. It comes out for the 19th, and that's great. But October is home to this year's biggest game release. I think you know where I'm going with this. October 23rd sees the release of the most anticipated game of the year. Ladies and gentlemen, Just Dance 2019. Releasing for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, PS3, PS2. Which, by the way, obviously the joke is Just Dance 2019 is not the biggest game of 2018. 18. That was a joke. But I'm not joking about the game coming out for PS2. At least I don't think. Believe it or not, the last couple Just Dance games did come out for the PS2. So it's not just FIFA games that are still releasing for the PS2. They're still making Just Dance games for the PS2. So there you go. Did that stick? Probably not, but for those interested, Just Dance 2019. Out 23rd of October. We've got two more major releases. Obviously, there's many games coming out this month, but again, I'm only listing the ones that I'm for sure gonna get, or ones that I'm interested in. On the 19th of October, we've got Soul Calibur 6, a fighting game. I was never too familiar with Soul Calibur, to be honest. That's the fighting game where every character has their signature weapon, so it's like a weapon warrior fighting game. I played a few in the arcade. I'm not familiar with the characters at all, but I remember playing as this girl. She had like a circle sword. It was like a sharp sword, but it was in the shape of a circle that had like handles in the middle. That was pretty cool. And I remember Soul Calibur. Another thing I know about it is they're well known for their guest characters. Obviously, games like Mortal Kombat, they've got their guest characters, but Soul Calibur was among the first fighting game franchises that had guest characters. In other words, characters from other franchises coming in. I think the Soul Calibur for the GameCube had Link. There was a Soul Calibur game for the PSP that featured Kratos. I think Xbox had their own guest character for like the old Xbox version. I think Spawn was their exclusive character, but for Soul Calibur 6, the upcoming Soul Calibur 6, the main guest character will be Geralt from the Witcher series. In fact, he's actually on the cover of the game, so they're very much pushing the fact that Geralt will be a guest character for the latest Soul Calibur. So there you go. If you're a Soul Calibur fan, you want your weapon fighting game fix, if you want your scantily clad women, which by the way, major respect to these crazy Japanese developers, these magnificent, crazy Japanese developers that still insist on scantily cladding their women characters. One of their, I don't even know her name, but one of the most well-known Soul Calibur characters. I'm sure if you probably don't know her name either, but if you see her, you'd recognize her. This woman with giant chichis with this crazy sword. She's in this still with that same scantily clad getup. So there you go. Mortal Kombat, they held off for a little bit. The PS3 one had the scantily clad Melinas and Katanas. They slowed it down. I mean, they put that to a screeching halt with Mortal Kombat X. Whether it be the pressures of, I guess, feministy type groups, which, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to... I think developers should be left to design the games that they want to make. I'm not going to, rip on Mortal Kombat X for, they dressed up their women more. I'm not... If that's how they wanted to do it, I support it. But kudos to them for doing that. If I can give kudos to Mortal Kombat for their freedom to dress up their women more, then I can also certainly respect Bandai Namco in Japan for staying true to their roots and dressing down their women in their games. It is what it is. Which, it's not everyone, There's some cool characters designs for these games. There's certainly much more modestly dressed women in that game, but for the ones that aren't, they've still stuck to their guns, and it's a crazy Chi-Chi fest in Soul Calibur 6. Again, releasing October 19th. We are down to our final game, though, and I'm sure most of you know what this game is. It needs no introduction. October 26th, 2018 sees, at long last, the release of Red Dead Redemption 2. I mean, there's not much more I can say about that. about this game. They've recently come out with some more gameplay footage. I think I'm done seeing any more from this game. I don't want. There just comes a time where you know a game is coming. I mean, for me, it was when it was announced. Red Dead 2 was announced. That announcement trailer came out, and I was just sold immediately. I don't need to see anything else. So I think I'm just gonna avoid seeing any more new footage. I know Rockstar is gonna keep releasing new footage, but just to keep it fresh for when it comes out. It already is the most graphically impressive game I've ever seen, surpassing the likes of even God of War, of Uncharted. Well, only because it's an open world game, I give the edge to Red Dead Redemption 2 over Uncharted 4, because Uncharted 4 was, for a while there, the best looking game, in my opinion. God of War up there as well, but I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to come out and is going to reinvent the open world game, just like only Rockstar can. They didn't invent the open world game, but they've created it in the way that we know it now. When Grand Theft Auto 3 came out back in, what was it, 2001, 2002? But leave it to only Rockstar to be able to keep reinventing the wheel and releasing such quality games. So Red Dead Redemption 2, I am sold. I've been sold since it was announced. The prequel to the first Red Dead Redemption, releasing October 26th, excuse me, 2018 for the PS4 and Xbox. No PC, which, much like the original Red Dead Redemption, no PC release, which was pretty big news at the time. The original one didn't come out with a PC release, but be curious to see if they're going to keep those plans with this new one. Certainly would be a loss for the PC crowd. So with that, we conclude the list of this month's releases for October 2018. Out of that lot of games that I shared, clearly Red Dead 2 is my most anticipated, followed by Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Again, without even playing a lot of the previous ones, I might just jump into Odyssey and play that. That might be my next game purchase, actually, this Friday, because I am in love with the setting of ancient Greece. What else was there? Forza. There's Forza for the crowd. Again, just a quick recap of the entire list. October 2nd, which was yesterday, so these two games are out. We've got Forza Horizon 4, Mega Man 11. For the 5th of October, we've got Super Mario Party and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. October 9th, we see the release of WWE 2K19. October 12th, Call of Duty Black Ops 4. October 16th, Starlink Battle for Atlas. The 19th, Dark Souls Remastered for the Switch. The 19th, Soul Calibur 6. Just Dance 2019. Get your friends together and dance your ass off on the 23rd. And last and not least, Red Dead 2 on the 26th, the end of the month. Thus, concluding our list. Did you know that Days Gone, Sony Ben's game, they're a post-apocalypse zombie game, this is Sony Ben's first console game since Siphon Filter, the Omega Strain on the PlayStation 2. That blows my mind. Days Gone is one of the PS4's most anticipated. It's one of their final exclusives. It's one of the last few exclusives to wrap up this generation before the PS5 gets announced. And it just it caught my attention that Sony Ben, they've made previous games. Their last game was Uncharted Golden Abyss for the PlayStation Vita, Sony's handheld console. And I think they released a PSP game as well. I think the Siphon Filter game for the PSP was also made by them. But as far as main console games, their last one was a PS2 game, which is pretty crazy. So that's just something I read that kind of caught my eye. in some sad, a little sad news, Sony has announced that there will be no PlayStation Experience this year. And for those that don't know, PlayStation Experience was kind of we have E3, which is like the main press show of the year. PSX was kind of like their year-end, like PlayStation's own E3 kind of. They started doing, I think it was either 2015 or 2014. And it was kind of their own, again, their own E3. And I really was enjoying their yearly PSX showcase, because we're kind of seeing, because what we are seeing is E3 is starting to become less significant, as we're seeing a lot of publishers making their own stage show rather than, all coming together, which E3 is, I mean, it's still going to be a thing, but we're already seeing the likes of, EA, next to E3, they have their own press show. Nintendo, they don't really need E3, and they did have a showcase this year, but they have their Nintendo Direct, which is like a once every few months, their own their own style of presentation press show, and it's been very successful for them. People, when they announce a new Nintendo Direct, people, it's hype show, including myself. That's when and they've been consistent with their directs. Every single Nintendo Direct has significant updates for their games, new announcements, and Nintendo's been doing a good job at just staying consistent with their updates. If Sony could present a similar format to that, I think it's just a smart way of doing it. You don't have to wait too long for updates on latest games or announcements. You keep your audience excited, especially it's on a once every couple months. It keeps the fans fed, so to speak. It's a smart. I really enjoy Nintendo Directs. They have a good thing going, Nintendo, with those. But PlayStation have their own year-end showcase with the PSX, and they announced this week that they are not going to have one this year, which does suck, and it does kind of lead to speculation that they have nothing new to show, which, I mean, it could very well be the case. As I stated earlier, we are coming to we're coming to a close to this generation. Many are predicting, me as well, that the PlayStation 5 will be announced and releasing 2020, which means we've got the rest of this year and all of 2019 to really be like the final mainline year for this generation. And Sony, they've taken the strategy as far as what they're showcasing, like what they've already have announced. I mean, their cards are pretty much all on the table at this point. We know we're getting Days Gone, which is coming out next February. We've got Ghost of Tsushima, which is Sucker Punch's latest, which was announced last year. And of course, The Last of Us Part 2, which is a major exclusive. Similar in the vein of the way the original Last of Us was kind of PlayStation 3's final big exclusive. I can surely predict that Last of Us Part 2 will also be, if not the last, but one of the final major PS4 exclusives. And then once that group of game comes out, which I'm sure we're going to get a couple more games come from it, like MLB The Show, I'm sure will be announced the beginning of 2019 and release that's later on that year. But aside from that small group of exclusives, that's pretty much a wrap for the PS4. A very successful, like I can't overstate how successful this generation has been for Sony. They're creeping up to 100 million sold units, as compared to Xbox's. I think Xbox One has sold around 40, which is just a it's not a dust on Sony's ass, to be honest. Sony is coming off a completely victorious generation, which good for them. They've certainly earned it. They've stuck to what sells consoles, which, as I stated earlier in the show, Microsoft is not. They're being very questionable as far as how they're treating the main draw to their consoles, which is the exclusives. Exclusives sell consoles. They're the reason why you buy one console over the other, aside from whichever console your friend gets. That might be a reason to sway you one way, but for the most part, I would assume that most people buy one console because that's the console that hosts certain types of games. People buy Nintendo consoles because they want to play Mario games, they want to play Zelda games. People bought PS4s because they wanted to play Uncharted 4. They wanted to play God of War. I mean, a Spider-Man game, for Christ's sakes. A Spider-Man game. Everyone loves Spider-Man, and people bought PS4s. Particularly the PS4 Spider-Man bundle, which, came with that beautiful red console with that exclusive red and white DualShock 4, which I've been trying to find. They don't. I was hoping they would sell that controller separately, but they don't. The only ones I see on eBay are the ones that came with the bundle, and fucking a-holes are selling it for. They're not selling it. People are bidding for it, and those bids go up to the hundreds. I'm not gonna spend $200 for a DualShock 4, but it is a beautiful controller nonetheless. But people bought that to play Spider-Man. Exclusive sell, and as I said earlier when I was talking about Forza Horizon 4, I'm not sure what Microsoft is doing, because that game is, started out as an Xbox exclusive. You can only play that on Xbox consoles, but now not just that one, but all of Microsoft's recent major releases, they've been exclusive to their console and the PC. They're keeping it Microsoft centric, though. That it's not being released on Steam or anything. It is releasing on the Windows Store, which is a Microsoft owned platform. But even still, most people have computers. Excuse me. And I must verbatim repeat the point I made earlier, in which not just Forza Horizon 4, but their biggest exclusives like the next Gears and the next Halo, if I can play those games on my computer, on the Windows Store, buy it on the Windows Store, install it on my computer, if I can play and get everything from that game without even having to utter the word Xbox, that is significant. That is very significant. That is not helping the Xbox platform. It's helping Microsoft's platform for sure. Microsoft is, I'm sure, happy, but in their console space, it's not doing Microsoft any favors. And I've seen, people trying to justify how this. I can't see how it justifies Xbox. I've seen a couple videos, but Sony knew that exclusive sell, and they capitalized on it, releasing exclusive after exclusive, not just good exclusive, but good exclusives. Game of the Year contenders: Horizon Zero Dawn, which was nominated for Game of the Year, God of War, Spider-Man. I mean, they knew the significance of exclusives, and they capitalized, and that's why it's no secret that many are predicting that the PS4 will reach 100 million sold consoles by the end of this generation, which is massive. It's up there among the most all-time sold consoles of all time. PS2 being the number one, and if it can, it's probably not gonna catch up, but if it can stand up there toe to toe with its older brother, the PS2, that's a success. The PS4 was a massive success for Sony, is what I'm trying to say. that appears to, that's really all the significant stuff I want to get to today. We are going to wind down the episode in a little bit. I do want to share with you how excited I am for October. We are going to switch to some horror vibes here in a sec. And I'm trying to figure out how I can implement some more horror thematics to this show, because again, the DualShock Graveyard podcast is a gaming, at heart it is a gaming podcast, but it's one with a horror ambiance to it, and I'm still trying to figure out how to implement that ambiance, because I do kind of want to bring those two worlds in one place here, and it's up in the air. Last week I did share some news about the Chucky franchise. For the uninitiated, for those that don't know, they're making a Child's Play, Chucky, what have you, reboot, and it's conflicting with the current franchise, which is still ongoing. A Chucky movie did come out last year to moderate success. I enjoyed it. They had a few releases. The one before that one, Curse of Chucky, was actually a very high point in the series. Curse of Chucky was great. The latest Cult of Chucky, went one way or the other. It's up to you. But the series was ongoing. A TV show is in the works, but the series is being rebooted. There's no significant update. I may have kind of even overhyped the story in itself. I think the bottom line of that is that this remake will happen, and it's most likely not going to interfere with the ongoing plans of the original franchise. If anything, it'll probably be a good thing. It'll probably get some more publicity for it. The feud between the original creators and this reboot, which isn't really even a feud. I mean, there was some shade thrown, as the cool kids say, thrown both ways. Actually, not one way. I mean, there hasn't really been much shade coming from the reboot makers of the reboot, but there was a couple memes were shared by the originals throwing shade at the new people, kind of showing their disapproval of this reboot. But aside from that, I think the reboot will come out. The franchise will still be ongoing. Their TV show will happen. They're just gonna coexist, and that's just what it's gonna be. It's not gonna grow anything beyond that. So, aside from that little update, I'm still trying to figure out how I can implement some horror theme. I'm working on a theme for the show, actually. For the show, it's gonna be this cool little spooky, electronic-y rock anthem for the show. Excuse me. As well as some plans, and if there's no better time than now, being that it is October, to unveil what these plans are. So we'll probably just get more in depth with that on next week's show. But there is your major happenings in the world of gaming. This month is a stacked October. All the biggest hits, all the major releases, the biggest releases of the year are coming together in 1 month, and that is that, I believe. Again, the only communication hub for the DualShock Graveyard podcast is my Twitter, at ambient_Jules. If you want to communicate with not just me, but with other members of this community, you are more than welcome to join. Anybody listening, you listening at home, just stop what you're doing right now, pull over, and add me on Twitter. And I would once again, before I end the show, apologize for the audio. Once again, I'm on my phone, and it's getting out of control at this point. If I were a listener, I'd be like, you're 3 episodes in, are you committed or not? If I don't have a mic by the end of this month, I should just stop the show altogether, because I'm clearly not committed, So that's a challenge that I'm putting forth myself. Get myself a mic before this month. It's a challenge to myself. I am very much committed to this show. I love making this show. I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would. I'm certainly a lot less nervous than I was my first episode. I'm still finding my voice. I'm still getting comfortable. This show started from the bottom, and we're nudging the dirt a little bit. We're still sort of kind of underneath the dirt, but slowly but surely that little thin sliver of plant will burst through the soil. Jesus, that sucked. But the show is still a work in progress. I appreciate each and every one of you out there listening. I have been getting a couple follows on Twitter. I do thank you for those. That'll do it. I mean, I kind of do want to shout out some of those followers, but again, just out of respect for them, I don't know if that would be appropriate or not. I'll probably ask, any new, would it be okay? Which I'm sure most of you wouldn't even mind. I mean, I should just do it, but just out of respect for y'all. Well, that'll all get figured out. So there's the show for this week, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for listening. I am Julian, your host, and this has been episode 3 of the DualShock Graveyard Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Today's Wednesday. I didn't stick to the schedule this week. I do apologize. There was a last minute setback that did not allow me to record yesterday, but that surely won't happen again. So next Tuesday I will see you guys for episode 4. This is the DualShock Graveyard Podcast. I am Julian. Twitter at ambient_Jules. And this podcast is available everywhere now. It is on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, wherever you get wherever you get your podcast feeds. The DualShock Graveyard Podcast is there, and that'll do it. Thank you so much for listening. Until next week. Later.